Hello and welcome to a new edition of Interview with Irene. And today my wonderful guest is author Andrew Hess, who will talk to us about his writing process and latest work. So thank you so much for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
Um, So let's begin by talking about how you got into writing.
So it's a little complicated, but it all started when I was actually in fifth grade, and I actually started doing a creative writing class. I was part of the creative writing club, and just kind of always had like a knack for writing weird and unique stories. Uh, it actually developed into me making my own newspaper in sixth grade. So when I got into middle school, I started writing my own newspaper because we weren't allowed to join any clubs during that time. So I couldn't be part of the school paper, so I made my own. It later developed to be a chosen path for me when I was in college. And it was because I had the idea to write my first novel, which was called The Phoenix Blade. And it was just because there was so much going on with the government and kind of a lot of, everyone liked to make little conspiracy theories. And I decided to create my own in a fictional sense about, the government hiring civilians to carry out, hits on people that they deemed as evil in the world.
Yeah, it is. Wow.
And then from there, it just kind of just kept steamrolling. I just kept coming up with more and more ideas.
Yeah. So, could you tell us a little bit about your latest work?
Sure. So my most recent book was the Crotona Contract.
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of a spin-off from the Phoenix Blade series. Basically, it's a woman who she's in her 50s and is a former CIA agent.
Wow.
And she retired. She wanted to be, out of that life, and she was dragged back into it when there was a hit put out on her son and his family. And both it was her son, her grandson, and her daughter-in-law were all killed in this hit.
Wow.
Made her want to go and get revenge, so she had to jump back into her old life as a CIA operative to go and get revenge.
Okay. So is she one of your favorite characters, or do you have any other favorites from past books in the series?
The Phoenix Blade series, I had several characters that I really loved. Obviously, the main character, Andrew Lancaster, I was a big of writing. The benefactor, who he's only in a couple of the books, but he kind of plays like a really important role throughout the whole series. Just because he's one of those guys where it's just like you really want to hate him, but he keeps doing things that it's just you love to hate him, and that's what I like about making some villains. You even some people that aren't villains in some of my stories, I tend to try to find ways to make the reader love to hate them. And I've done that with a few characters.
I know. I know a lot of people seem to like villains more than the heroes because villains are so interesting
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
And I made it one where she wasn't even really meant to be a villain in my Detective Thornton series.
Right.
One of the female characters, and she's not even a villain, but all the readers hate her because she's not a villain, but she does deceptive things to try to get back with her ex. And, and everyone wished harm on her, which is kind of funny.
I bet a lot of people they hate her, but also they can relate. That's why they're interested in her. So yeah. Um. Also, on your social media you talk about doing other events sometimes, and you even mentioned coming to Chicago sometime. So,
Yep.
how has your experience been in doing such events?
Um,
Um,
the
the
Chicago one,
Chicago one,
I had
I
to
had to
leave. I
leave. I
couldn't go to
couldn't go to
that.
that.
I really
I
wanted
really
to.
wanted to.
I've never
I've
been.
never been.
Yeah.
Um, but
But I've
done
done
several events.
several events.
They
They
some of them
some of
have
them
been
have been.
good. Some of
Some
them,
of them,
you know,
you know,
turn
turn
out
out isn't
as what
as
you
what you
expect.
expect.
Um, I've
I've
actually doing.
actually doing.
I just
I
moved to
just moved to
Georgia,
Georgia,
and I actually
and I
have
actually
one that's going to be coming up in October that I can't wait for.
Mm.
But a lot of these author events, I mean, you know, they get some big following sometimes.
Right.
You know, I choose them based on my location, places that I want to go and visit. So I kind of just, you know, make an extended weekend out of it or something, you know. Do a little bit of sightseeing while I'm out. But yeah, you know, they're a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of interesting people too.
That is so cool. Um, and you touched on this a little just a while ago, but how do you start on a new idea? Like you were saying how the school newspaper inspired you before. What inspires you now?
That's a good question. Honestly, it's weird because most of the concepts that I've come up with were based off of dreams that I've had.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like even the ending for the Phoenix Blade, I I had pictured this to be like a cookie cutter ending originally, and it was just going to be all neat and tied up in like, you know, one book, and that was going to be it. And I ended up having a dream. I was having a really restless night's sleep, and I dreamt of a different ending, and that's what I went with, and it caused me to actually have to write more books because of it. And I've had similar situations happen with other books. My Detective Ryan series, it started out with me just kind of, I wanted a different take on a detective novels because, you know, they're always one-sided. They're always just really focusing on the investigation itself. And I decided I wanted to make it partly the investigation, so this way there's still a mystery, but I wanted to do things from a perspective of the killer also, to give readers a different perspective, a different idea of how a detective novel should be done.
Right.
The later books in her series, I decided I wanted to do a different twist to them. So the later books, I think it's books 4 and 5, were to bring focus to human trafficking, and you know that anyone could really be, you know, dragged into something like that. You know, it's not something that is just for, you know, for younger people or for, you know, people that are from foreign lands or anything like that. It's anyone at all, any age could really be, you know, duped into being brought into something like this, and then they're stuck. So I was trying to bring some awareness into that, and then even one of my books, Trapped Inside, it's Living with Agoraphobia, and it's all fictional, but I wanted to bring awareness to the social anxiety disorder for agoraphobia, because it's not something that a lot of people talk about. It's, you know, it's, people do have social anxieties, and it's not as known to a lot of the people, and I wanted to bring awareness to it.
Right. And I'm sure that people who suffer from that are, in fact, happy that you are creating stories, bring awareness to that. So, very, I know it's fiction, but at the same time, it's very important work too. So,
Thank
any other interests outside?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten into photography actually. The last
Uh-huh.
year.
Oh, God.
Um, I'd say, wow, God, how long has it been now? I think I started picking it up in 2015. No, 2014 maybe. Yeah, I think it was 2014 I started, and it all just started because I wanted to. I was actually trying to just do my own book covers. Um, I was always going to other people to have them create a book cover for me, and I had a couple friends that I knew did professional modeling. My friend Louisa has been one of the best best friends that I've had, and she helps me out a lot when it came to many of my books. Um, she she was the first model that I had, and then I used one of my coworkers for the cover for Number One Fan, and I loved doing the photo shoot for it. It was a lot of work, and it was a little bit of a pain in the butt to try to get everything nailed down and kind of
Mm.
scheduled, including trying to find a location. I think the location and scheduling were the two biggest, um, the most difficult pieces of it. But once I actually got there and got to do the photography itself and taking the pictures and kind of posing everybody the way I want them to be posed, it was a lot of fun. And
Oh,
from that
God.
forward, I kept wanting to do the covers for my own books and the teasers and the promo pictures because I have a lot of friends that you know, and they're all different types. You know, redheads, brunettes. You know, I have guys that are like jacked looking. I had a guy that was nerdy looking. You know, it was just you bring out like different people for these covers, and it's awesome because they enjoy it, and I'm loving to take the pictures of it because now it's actually bringing my characters to life essentially.
Right. This incredible that something gives you even more ownership over your books as opposed to having someone else do the cover. So,
Yep.
yep. Any advice for future writers?
Oh, that in itself could be a book.
Yep.
I would say honestly, the the biggest things that I can wind up saying is networking with other authors,
Right.
whether it's through. I started doing it through LinkedIn and Google Plus. That's how I met a lot of people to start off with, and then it kind of steamrolled even more so with Facebook and now with using Instagram. I've met a lot of authors and a lot of readers through social media, and connecting with the authors is big a big plus because um, you can help bounce ideas off of each other and kind of help to make each other better authors, and especially when you're doing indie authors, you're in the independent market. uh, all the help that you can get is always highly beneficial. But having a group of people that surround you that genuinely care about you and your success, and you genuinely care about them, is a huge benefit. And the other piece of it is, again, connecting with your readers, I feel is a huge benefit too, because I've had several readers where I've become very close with them, and they read my stories. And one of them, she actually read one of my books, and she goes, "No, this wasn't up to your standards. I'm telling you right now, it's a bit boring. You need to go and redo this because otherwise it's not your standard." And I went back and I actually rewrote about half the book.
Oh, wow.
Because this reader she was adamant. She was sitting there. You're not up. You're not up to par.
Yeah.
And hearing that, I'm like, wow. I'm like, maybe there's something off. Maybe I missed something. And I went back. I reread the whole thing, wrote half of it all over again,
Oh,
sent
wow.
it back over to her to just kind of look at. And she goes, "This is much better. This is more to what you need to be putting out."
That's
And I
great.
wound up sending it out then to be published.
That's great. That's wonderful. So it's always good when you get honest and constructive um input like that. And thank you so much for joining me today. This was really an
Thank you very much for having
incredible one. Yeah, and hopefully we'll have you again in the future.
me.
And
Absolutely.
yeah. And thank you to all of you for joining me for another interview with Irene. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.